Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to another Adobe XD Masterclass. My name is Howard Pinsky, Senior XD Evangelist here at Adobe, and I'm so excited to be back here on this lovely Friday afternoon. Hope you're all doing well. If you are tuning in live on Behance, let me know who you are and where you're tuning in from. We've got Elizabeth and Yusanaru and Cody and Raphael and Cornell and Lindsay and Anna and Jonathan. And who else do we have in here? Jack is in the house, Michelle, and Juhi. Welcome, everyone. So glad you're tuning in on this great Friday. All right, so what do we have planned for today? Well, if you tuned in on, I think it was Tuesday. It's been a very long week. I think it was Tuesday. Me and Bill from Adobe sat down and we explored what a virtual museum could offer. You know, we're living in strange times right now where we can't simply get up and go to a museum and browse with hundreds of other people. A lot of these experiences are being taken digitally, and we started to explore that. And there's a whole team at Adobe who's been working with actual museum partners to help solve some of these problems and tackle these opportunities. So I figured maybe we'll continue that process and we'll explore what that landing page could look like, what some of those experiences internally, maybe what a mobile app could look like. Who knows? We have about an hour today, so we'll get through as much as we can. We are going to be revisiting the landing page that I created on Tuesday. It was only like a 20-minute class, so I zipped through it super quickly. So we're going to be revisiting that. But before we do, we've got Andre from Romania and Uma Korn. If I mispronounced your name, I do apologize. First Masterclass. Thank you for joining me. This is Masterclass number 17. We've been doing this for 17 weeks, and we're going to continue doing this for, I don't know, till I'm old and gray. It's gonna be fun. Vanessa from Berkeley and Victor from Brazil, Jonathan from Mexico, Lowry from Puerto Rico, John from Netherlands. It's great to see everyone from all over the world. Hope you're all staying safe in these crazy times. We will get through it. All right, I'm gonna hop over to my screen. Here's Adobe XD. We are going to be starting from scratch, from the very beginning. This is the splash screen. And I think for this project, last week we tackled an iPad view. I think we're going to just blow it up a little bit, right? And, I pronounced it correctly. Nice, from the Netherlands. Welcome. And Vipin, welcome everyone. Especially the new people, the old people, young people, I don't know, all the people. So we're going to go with, we'll start with a web view. We can always use responsive resize to enlarge it, make it bigger, make it smaller. We'll see what happens. All right, so here's what we're going to do. We are going to start just blocking out this web page. And you may have seen some of this earlier this week on Tuesday. I did tackle a little bit of it, but I didn't really talk through the process, right? Bill was talking a lot. I was talking a lot. We were talking about the important things, the partnerships we've had with museums and how to explore and tackle those opportunities. So I want to really go over some of the design choices that I made, right? So the first thing that I did was I used a rectangle tool because I think it should be a law that whenever you start a design process, you have to use the rectangle. I don't know why, but maybe that's the thing, right? And you know what? I'm going to actually, let me backtrack a little bit. I'm going to start with an iPad view because I want to kind of mimic what we did on Tuesday. So I'm going to do an iPad Pro. I'm going to flip it. So we're starting with a nice landscape view. And I'm going to grab the rectangle one more time and draw one out about halfway down the page or across the page, right? Just like that. And this one on the right that I just dragged out is going to be used as an image, a placeholder for an image. And I may also want over here some sort of a background color. And what I did on Tuesday is I chose this really nice purple color. Because what I'm thinking in my mind is that maybe this should be targeted towards a younger audience, right? To get them maybe excited about going to museums digitally. And someone's noticed, I just got a haircut. I did, finally. It was getting out of control. And I have some very important videos to record very soon. So I had to get one done. So yeah, we're going to target this towards a bit of a younger audience to get them excited about going to museums eventually. Maybe some of the art, very old art, very old sculptures. Get them excited about the whole process, right? So we're going with very bright colors. Now, for the image on the right, I'm going to switch over to Finder very quickly. And I've got a bunch of images that I grabbed from Adobe Stock. Originally I was going to use this one, which I kind of got the inspiration for that purple, but I think it's a little bit too silly, right? I want it to be fun and exciting, but I felt it was a little bit overdone. So this one over here, it has a nice splash of color, but it's a fairly serious sculpture, right? So I'm going to just pop this in, boop, just like that, and I can double click into the mask and enlarge it if I wanted to, and just move it around just like that. I can also flip it if I need to, but that looks a little bit strange. He looks sassy now. Vipin saying, is the gardener silent now? For now. I think the gardener finished. I posted a video on Twitter not too long ago. I was recording some videos, and right as I press record, the gardener or construction, somebody out there was just rumming his thing. All right. So yeah, it's interesting what flipping can do. For some reason, whoops, not that one. For some reason, this looks not bad, but if you flip it this way, this man or woman just looks very sassy. Very bizarre, right? I don't know. So we'll keep it like this. Now, on this side here, we're going to want a bunch of different content. We're going to want a logo, maybe some text links. We're going to want a header to kind of get people interested and kind of convey what exactly this landing page is. So starting off right at the top, we're going to start with a logo. I'm going to hop into my plugins panel, and you've probably seen this before. If you're brand new to this, then this might be the first time, but I use a lot the Icons for Design plugin. And if you haven't explored plugins yet, if you're back in the plugins panel, press that plus button at the top. You'll launch your plugins manager. You can search for plugins, browse plugins, but this one here gives you access to open source icons. So I can just type in museum, for example. If I can spell it correctly, that would be fantastic. And I've got a great looking icon right here. I can pop into this design and I can change the color to white. Maybe I'll make it a little bit larger, and I can position it somewhere right about here. I'm gonna name this landing page because it bothers me. Right, there we go. Perfect. So we've got our lovely icon, and then maybe over to the right of this icon, we may want some text links so that users can navigate to the various sections of this experience. So maybe we'll just do discover, for example. Wow. My keyboard is on a weird angle. It's like resting on the microphone stand, so it's very difficult to type when I'm doing these live streams. And I'm going to go with Sophia Pro. If you've been watching my streams, you know I use Sophia Pro so often. It's a fantastic typeface. It's very simple, and it has a lot of different variants. So I can go semi-bold, bold, medium, whatever it might be. And Raphael is saying, I wish you can drag the icons out of there. I do too. The Adobe XD API, I believe, supports drag and drop from your plugins panel, but this plugin, I don't believe, has updated anytime recently, so maybe one day. So we'll do discover. Maybe there'll be some events. These could be online events. Eventually, these could be real events, in person. I don't remember what an in-person event even feels like these days. And then we might do about, right? So I'll position this one about here, and then I'll position discover about here. Then what I'll do is I'll select all of these. So I'll hold down my shift key, click, click, and click. And then right here at the top, we've got our alignment and distribution options. If I press the distribute horizontally, which is this one right here, it'll basically look at the object on the far left, the object on the far right, and position everything else nicely, evenly in between, which is great. And if I zoom out, you know what, it's looking a little bit too spread out. So maybe I'll just fix that a little bit and move this over a touch. I can get back to this at some point. I'm not too worried about it, but for now, I will leave it at that. Maybe I'll just darken this background a little bit, make it a little bit more purple. There we go. All right. Now, down here, we may want may want a header, again, to convey what exactly this experience is all about. So I'm going to grab my text tool one more time, and I'll go, let's say, the world's masterpieces, and then at home, just to really nail that home, that you'll be able to access and browse and watch all these cool masterpieces, from paintings to sculptures, all from the comfort of your home. I'm going to make this a little bit larger by pulling on this handle right here. And I'm not completely loving Sophia Pro in this case, and I may want to actually maybe make this all uppercase. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over here in my properties inspector. I'm going to press the uppercase button just like that. And then I may want to actually shift over to Dunbar. I've got Dunbar low, which is pretty good. We also have Dunbar tall. Both of them in the uppercase setting are approximately the same. They have some slight differences, but I'm going to go with Dunbar tall. That looks pretty good. And then maybe for the first half of this header, I might want to just drop this to regular, right? I really want to nail home, no pun intended, that at home is the focus of this experience, at least for now, right? There we go. Lowry's saying, just installed the plugin. It's a great plugin. It's fantastic. UI Faces is also another good plugin. And I'm going to be exploring and showing you the Google Sheets plugin as well. So if you're working with other people, that's going to be a magical plugin for you. All right. So, Unicorn is saying, Sophia can't access through fonts. Can you give me a good alternative that's similar? Let's see. What Open Sans is a good one. I mean, obviously Helvetica is pretty decent. It's not a crazy font, so you can probably find a lot of typefaces that are fairly similar. But I'll see if I can, as I'm designing this, I'll see if I can come across any. I'm just going to change the line height just a little bit, just so it's not too squishy, but also not too spread apart. Now, just to, again, emphasize what this experience is, I may want some sort of a description. So I'm going to grab my text one more time, draw one out across this artboard. It's a bit hard to see on the purple background, but I'm going to pop that there. I'm going to type out description just for a second, right? And maybe I will drop this in size quite a bit. And for this one, because we're not working with a header, I'm going to actually go back to Sophia Pro and maybe drop this to about medium. Maybe I'll drop this to 24 and then drop the opacity a touch as well. This is definitely secondary information. The header at the top is by far what we want users to see immediately. Now, as I'm building much of this out, what I want to start doing, and sometimes I don't do this right away, but it's okay because some of this is retroactive, is add many of these assets to my assets panel. So if I go down here to the bottom, we've got three icons. Whoops. Let me move my dock out of the way. There we go. We've got three icons down here. The zoom is not cooperating. We've got our plugins down at the bottom, we've got our layers, and we have our assets right over here. And this is where you can add your colors, your character styles, and your components. So if I just grab the header and press the plus button beside character styles, in this case it's going to add two of them because we actually used two different styles for this particular header, right? So we can go ahead and name this. Oops, let me go ahead and deselect it. We can name this, let's say header, and then this is the regular or the thin or whatever you want to call it, regular version of it. And then this one here is header, but this is the bold. So if we need to change any of those, we can very easily do that. And maybe I'll select the body description. I'll just name this description, just like that. And maybe I'll select the background color, press the plus button, and we've got our nice highlight purple, just like that, right? Fancy. My screen looks big. It is pretty big. It's 27 inches, I think. Yeah, so, and the benefit of this is, if you decide to change the description across multiple artboards, all you have to do is right click, press edit, and let's say you want to go with Comic Sans, for example. Fantastic typeface, right? No? Okay. You can do that, and it would change everywhere. But of course, nobody wants to do that, so we're going to undo that. Perfect. Now, for here, we could go ahead, I do want to save some time, so we could go ahead and type something out, but for now, because we're talking a lot about plugins, I may want to just go back to my plugins, go to Lorem Ipsum, for example. I try to stay away from it, but if we have time later on, we will revisit this description. But I'm going to go ahead and insert some text, and I can adjust the line height just like that, right? I can double click on this if I wanted to, or I can go back and just add some more text if I wanted to, right? And that looks okay. Looks fine, I think. It's a little bit squishy. There's probably too much text in this particular example. So maybe what I'll do is I'll just bring this back and I'll just space this out a touch. There we go. That's looking a little bit better. All right, beautiful. Okay, so we've got our header, we've got our description. We may also want some buttons. Maybe a button to, I know, Elizabeth, Lorem Ipsum. Again, I try to stay away from using it because it just doesn't help really when someone's browsing this and testing this out, but I do want to get to a lot of other things during this masterclass, so maybe I'll go back if I have some time. Or if one of you wants to write a description that's about this long, put it in chat, I'll just copy and paste it. All right, so what I'm going to do now is I may want a button, or 2 buttons, for example. One to maybe start exploring this experience, and one to download. Maybe there's a mobile app or something to that extent. So I'm going to grab my rectangle. I'm going to draw out a rectangle just like this, and this is going to be the first button, which is going to be the explore button. So I'm going to round out these corners because this is more of a fun experience. So I'm going to round those out. I don't need a border because the white on the purple background, there's a nice amount of contrast in this case. Now in the center, we may want to start typing. I'm going to select a nice color, and let's go ahead and start. Hold on, where's my layers? Let me just make sure I'm not doubling things up. Okay, and let's go for start exploring, and I'll go ahead and select a nice purple. Now for this one, we may be able to get away with the Dunbar typeface, right? And that looks kind of fun. Just add a little bit of a fun aspect, fun feel to this plugin, just like this, right? And since this is a call to action, I'm going to bump it up to bold. I'm going to make sure to center this. And now we have a nice button, right? But we may want additional buttons. We may want buttons that are similar, but not exactly the same, right? And that's where components and states comes into play. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select both elements that make up this button right here. And I'm going, Lowry's saying I'm downloading literally all the plugins. And aren't they fantastic? Even the Lorem Ipsum. Yeah, it's okay for just like very quick text, but for the most part, probably stay away from it. So we've got our 2 objects selected, and we want to turn this into a component. And you can do that again in your assets panel. I'm going to hit the plus button beside component, and I'm going to just call this button, just like that, right? Now, over to the right, you may notice that there is also a component section, but over here, this will allow you to handle your states. So if I press the plus button, actually before I do that, one thing I do want to talk about is padding. So we also over to the right, we've got the padding option. And if I turn that on, that activates content-aware layout. And what's really cool about that is automatically it'll determine the padding around your object. So it'll look at the relationship between the text layer and the object in the background. And you can have very complex objects behind it. You can have masks, you can have groups, Boolean objects, whatever it might be. But in this case, it's fairly simple. We may explore some more advanced options at some point. But we've got that, and you can see it has 16 pixels, 24. And if you do want to just adjust it just like that, you can do that inside of the Properties Inspector, or you can hold down your S key, and you can adjust the padding directly on your canvas. And if you hold down Shift as well, you can adjust all of it at once, which is nice. But one of the main benefits of working with content-aware layout is this. Hello, right? As you start typing, the background behind it automatically resizes, which is fancy. Now, let's go ahead and add one state. We're going to choose a new state. We could also explore hover states as well. We may do that, but we're going to go with new state just for now, and maybe this is the outline state. So for this one, now that I have the state selected and active, I'm going to go ahead and dive in. Maybe we don't need a fill for this, for example. Maybe we just want a border. And we're going to increase the size of the border quite a bit, maybe about 4 pixels. And the text in the center, we may want white to kind of match, right? So we've got our default state and we have our outline state. Now, the benefit of this is I can just drag a copy over here, which is called an instance. I should probably explain if you're new to XD. The master components are indicated with the solid diamond at the top left, right? Any instance or state is indicated with the hollow diamond, right? And that will allow you to, if you need to edit, and I'll show you this in a second, if you need to edit the styling across all of them, you can easily do that. So for this one, I may just want to switch over to the outline state. And because we have content-aware layout turned on, I can actually left justify this so it stays over to the left. I can just go ahead and go, let's type out download, right? And I don't have to manually resize everything. Looks like a few people were not aware of content-aware layout. It's a fantastic tool, and we may have some improvements to content-aware layout coming at some point. We'll see, right? All right. Laura is asking, what's the typeface of Start Exploring? This one is Dunbar Tall, also available on Adobe Fonts. Great typeface. So we've got these two, right? Now, the benefit of working with components is that if you did decide to change the styling across all of your buttons, you simply have to go to your master component, which is right here, and make changes, right? So you can make changes to the master, the default state on the master, which will change everything, including your states, right? Or you can change the individual states on your master component, which will only affect those states. So there's a lot of different ways you can manage components, which is really nice, right? So we've got our buttons, we've got Start Exploring, and we have Download. And things are looking pretty good. I'm actually going to space some of these things out. I'm just going to move some stuff down, just so we have some more breathing room. Perfect. All right. Things are looking pretty good. I may also want to I have some room, so I might as well just bump up the size of this text. Again, we've got this lorem ipsum, which is driving me crazy, but we're going to run with it for now. And that's looking pretty good. All right. Now, going down this page, we may want to highlight a few paintings or sculptures that maybe we want users to really start looking at. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by selecting the entire artboard and just dragging the bottom handle downwards, just like this, right? Now you're going to notice when you do that, you've got this blue handle over to the left, and that is your viewport height. Anything above this handle is going to be visible immediately when you launch your preview, and anything below it is going to be accessible upon scroll. So keep that in mind, right? So if I go ahead and launch the preview at the top right, and I scroll down, right, initially, you see everything above that handle, and then we see nothing, because we haven't done anything down there. Here's what we're going to do. We are going to grab a rectangle, and I'm going to draw one out, just like this. This will be the first painting that we're going to highlight. And I'm going to change the color just for now, like that. And maybe I'll position it a little bit above the fold so that people who are landing on this page can see that there is content down there. Because, you know, if I leave it down here and I press play, there's really no indication. Maybe the Start Exploring button might give you some indication, but for the most part, there's no indication there's anything down there. But by moving this up, all of a sudden, users that land here are going to be like, okay, there's something down there. Maybe I should start scrolling, right? There we go. So let me go ahead and, oops, cancel that, close that. Beautiful. So we've got our placeholder here for an image. We'll get to the image in a second. And now over here to the right, we may want some text. So I'm going to grab my text tool and I'm going to just type out painting name just as a placeholder for now. I'm kind of liking the Dunbar header for now, or the text. And let's go ahead. Bold looks pretty good. I'm going to position it right about here, maybe makes it a little bit larger. Of course, once we actually add in some actual content, it may change the size, right? But for now, we'll leave it at that. And then we will go for a nice body text, just like this. Description. Bam. And again, I'm a little bit lazy right now, so lorem ipsum it is. That's a lot of text, isn't it? Maybe I'll drop this just a touch. I'm going to bump this to about medium. I'm going to right justify it. And I do see some questions coming in. I will get to those shortly, but I'm going to space this out a touch more. That's probably a little bit better. There we go. All right. You know what? Maybe let's go for just only a few lines, only because I may want a button in there. There we go. All right, so we've got some questions. What are some of the best practices to get original idea or to improve creativity? That's from Vipin. For me, I mean, it's going to differ from person to person. For me, I love recreating projects. So I'll go onto Dribbble or go onto Behance. I'll find some really cool projects that people have put together that are striking, and I'll just recreate them. And you know, they're not for commercial use. They're probably not even going to be uploaded anywhere to the web. They're simply for me to practice and get some interesting ideas. That way, when I am working on something like this, for example, those ideas are in the back of my mind, right? And you can also use many of those projects you see on Dribbble and Behance to inspire you for projects like this. You know, when I was trying to figure out what this page would look like, I went onto Dribbble, I went onto Behance, I typed in museum into the search field, and I just looked at hundreds of projects that focused on museums. And I just kind of, took a little bit of inspiration from one piece, took a little bit from another piece, and eventually everything kind of came together, right? So hopefully that helps. But again, it's on a case-by-case basis. And Charzil is saying, been following you for a long time. You probably, my question is, it's about creativity as well. How can I improve my design? The same thing goes. Just keep practicing, recreate projects, and eventually, a lot of this comes with practice, right? Eventually, it'll all come together. All right, so we've got our painting name, and we've got our copy right over here. I may want to bring in one of these buttons over here. Now, for this one, we may, because it's on a white background, it kind of blends in a little bit. So in this case, an additional state may come in handy. So what I can do is I can either right click over here and then choose Edit Master Component, or I can press the pencil icon up here at the top right. And that'll take me to that master component where I can actually create a new one. So let's go ahead and create a new state. This will be called purple. And this one, all I'm going to do is select the background, change the color to purple, select the text, change the color to white, right? Now, obviously I don't need it in this case, so I'll just go back to my default state. And over here, you're going to notice that instance has automatically updated with that new component. So I can just go ahead and press that. And maybe this will be just learn more, for example. Learn more. More. There we go. Spelling is hard. Perfect. All right. There we go. So we have one area looking pretty good. Now this text is looking a little bit small. Maybe I'll bump it up to about 22, just so there's a nice amount of room. There we go. Back to the good old lorem ipsum. Perfect. You know what? I'm going to space this out just a touch. There we go. We want to make sure that everything is legible. Now, let's go ahead and throw in an image because it looks boring with this gray box here. So I'm going to go over to Finder. I do have a folder of paintings, and this one over here, one of my favorite paintings. I just love this thing. I'm going to just drag this in here and pop it right there. All of a sudden, we have a little bit more life to this page. And if we go ahead and press the play button, we've got our landing page, a little bit of a hint that something is down here. We can scroll, we can see our painting name, our description, our button, so on and so forth, right? That's looking pretty good. All right, now down below this, we may want one more. We're not gonna do too many of them, but maybe just one more. So I'm gonna select all this element here. You know what, I should probably group this. Group, and this will be just called painting. Painting. Wow, paint. There we go, right? And I'm going to drag this down, and maybe I'll just want to flip it. Now, obviously, when you flip it like that, everything inside flips as well, so you may just want to flip that. Maybe I'll left justify these, move this over, and I'll just move this up a little bit. And there we go. Now we have painting number 2, which I'm going to space out quite a bit. We want a lot of breathing room on a page like this. One mistake I see often from designers is that they just squeeze everything together, especially when they're doing case studies on Behance. They want to add as much information to a page as possible. And I get it. I really get it. But it's very difficult to read. It's difficult to process when you're scrolling down a page. So just let things breathe, right? This amount of breathing room is fine. You don't have to do this, right? And especially up here, like you don't have to squeeze everything in like this. Let it breathe. There we go. All right, so let's add one more painting in here, and let's go ahead and add the Harvesters. It's a fancy painting. Pop that in there, and all of a sudden, we have a pretty nice looking page, right? Now, before we move on from this particular page, I do want to talk very quickly about anchor links, one of the newer features in Adobe XD. So for example, you may want, maybe when someone presses Start Exploring, it'll automatically move down to this area down here. Just in case some users, maybe they have a smaller browser and they can't see some of that area or some of the painting down here kind of peeking up, or maybe they just don't know that they should be scrolling, but they see a button that says Start Exploring. They want to explore, so they click on it, right? Now, if we go to prototype mode, we've got our button selected, and instead of dragging this to a completely separate artboard, we can actually drag it to elements on this particular artboard. So I'm going to drag it to this group here, and I'm basically telling Adobe XD right now that when someone clicks on this button, it's going to automatically go down and scroll down to this particular group. So if I press play without doing anything else, I click on it, it does its thing, right? Pretty good. Now you're noticing that by default, it's right at the top of the group, which in some cases you may want. But in this case, I want a little bit of breathing room up there because I want someone to explore and really view that painting at its whole, right? So in that case, you've got another handle over here, the one with the lightning. That is your offset. So if I just drag this up a little bit, I'm now telling Adobe XD that when you scroll down, stop right at the top here. And I can also adjust the easing options. I can do ease in and out, make it a little bit slower. And now I can press start exploring and it scrolls down really nicely, right? Fancy. Now we can get a little bit creative too, right? What if we wanted a back to top button? We don't have a lot of room because we've kind of squished things in, but one thing we can do is let's go to our plugins. We'll go to our icons for design plugin and we'll just, let's say top. Will that work? I might just need an up arrow. Oh, this one kind of works, possibly. It's a bit small, but we're gonna run with it. It's simple. It's not exactly what I was looking for, but you might imagine that you might want an icon right here that will go back to the top when you press on it. Now, obviously, when you're first on your home page, you don't really need that button to be visible. So what I'm going to do two things. I'm going to set the color to this purple, just like this. And I'm also, just to make sure it's hidden, I'm going to move it all the way to the back, behind all these layers. And I'm also going to turn on fixed position when scrolling, just like that. That way, when I start scrolling down, that icon will reveal itself. Now, it is a little bit small. I would probably make it a little bit larger. I'd probably have to actually grab some of these elements and just drag them in just a touch, just like that, right? And I'll probably adjust some of that at some point. Let me also move this inwards a little bit just to give some additional breathing room. And now, if we go back to our icon, now we have a little bit more room to make it larger. There we go. So I'll position it right about there. And again, I can now scroll down and it's going to be always present. So the big question is, what do we do with this? What we can do is we can go into prototype mode. With that icon selected, we can actually drag the blue handle up to an area at the top, right? You can drag it actually to this rectangle in the background. You can drag it to the icon, wherever you want it to land. But I'm going to leave it on this rectangle because it does give me a nice flush scroll right to the top. So now I can press play. I can press start exploring. It's going to scroll down to my photos and the paintings down at the bottom. I can scroll again. We've got our back to top icon and whoop, there it goes, right back to the top, right? And I'm just going to move it up just a little bit, just so it's not right at the bottom. That looks pretty good. Right back up to the top. And he's saying, could you please demo drop-down menu linking to a sub-page from the home page? Anchor links won't work from one page jumping to another. It won't. And that might be something coming in the future, but at the moment, anchor links will only work on a single page. So if you do want to create a drop-down that goes to another page, it will go to the top of that other page, at least at the moment. Hopefully one day, anchor links will work amongst various artboards. All right, so the homepage is looking pretty good. I'm pretty happy with it. I do want to move on to something else that will really showcase repeat grids, and it'll also showcase the Google Sheets plugin. So let's create one more artboard back in design mode. And you may, let's see, let's go for the same artboard, the iPad Pro, flip it around. And for this experience, what I'm thinking is this is going to be like the gallery viewer. Maybe when someone presses on learn more, or they find themselves browsing lots of paintings, they may be kind of immersed in this experience where they see the painting, which is almost full screen. Maybe they see some navigation on the right. Maybe they see some more information about that painting below. So what we're going to do, let's grab a rectangle, as always, draw one out like this. We're going to leave a little bit of room at the bottom, a little bit of room at the side for the navigation. And I'm just going to change this color to gray. And then over here to the side, we're going to draw out a darker box. And I'm going to explain this in a second. And the background is going to be darker as well. Now, you're probably asking yourself, possibly, you're going with this nice purple and these bright colors on the homepage, and all of a sudden things are very dark. And the reason I'm doing this, I thought about this a lot, is, if I were to go for purple here, and maybe either white or purple down here at the bottom, when you're trying to immerse yourself in art, these bright colors and the light of the white and the crazy purple, it's going to be very distracting. And maybe there could be a toggle to go from purple to dark, but I found that going very dark will allow your eyes to really focus on the painting in the center here. And just as an example, let's go ahead and bring in Starry Night, right? So we've got that here. It's a little bit of a lower quality picture, but if I were to do this and I were to do this, right? Not only is this purple blending a little bit, it's getting a little bit muddy with the image over to the left, but this big white area at the bottom is incredibly distracting now. I find my eyes going from the painting down to the bottom, back to it's just going all over the place, right? So tone it down a little bit, and now I can focus on this fantastic painting. And Cody's saying dark mode, indeed. All right, now for this, there's a few things we might want. We might want some sort of a navigation on the right. So maybe these are simple ellipses. So I'm going to just draw an ellipse here, a nice white ellipse for this one. I'm going to pop it in the center, and I'm going to press Command or Control R, or I can hit the repeat grid button right over here to the right, and boop, there we go. Got to make the boop. And now you can just drag out a few ellipses down the page. We'll go for 4 in this example, and we'll just space them out. Let's say that's 16 pixels, and right about right there. Looks pretty good. It's about the center of this painting over to the left. Now, because, in a navigation like this, it's kind of like a pagination, right? The first one, or the active painting, would be highlighted, and the other ones would be a little bit darkened. So if I were to simply dive into this repeat grid, select this second one, and drag the opacity down, you're noticing it's affecting all of them, and that is by design. When working with a repeat grid, if you change the styling of one object, it will change all of the other ones. However, you can get away with it by turning one of these into a component. So if you right-click, press Make Component, or you can do it in the Assets panel or the Properties Inspector, lots of ways to make components. Press Make Component, it's going to turn that into a master component, and now what I can do is I can go into these ones, maybe turn down the opacity about 30% just by pressing the 3 key on my keyboard. So now you can override elements inside of a repeat grid simply by using components. All right, now down here at the bottom, we may want some additional information about this painting, very similar to the home page, so I'm actually going to grab this information. And Minash is saying, I can't get enough repeat grid in my life. I agree, Minash. I'll change this to white, left justify, and now we've got some additional information about this painting at the bottom, right? Perfect. All right, so now that we have kind of the basic setup complete, we want to add in a few additional ones, and we also want to be able to navigate between them all. So here's what we can do. Inside of actually we can just grab the entire thing, right? We can grab all of this information, and just to help us throughout this process, we may also want to drag out a background. Now this background is going to be the exact same color as the one we've already chosen for the artboard, but it's going to be an object that the repeat grid is going to be able to recognize. And when we drag out additional repeat grid items, it'll allow everything to really nicely pan out. So we've got all the objects ready to go, and I'm going to name this pagination. And this is lorem ipsum again. Now, here's what we have to start thinking about, right? There's one more thing I want to do. Actually, I'm going to right justify this. This will just be the date. Let's say it's 1930, I don't know, 1932. And I'm going to make this nice and small and position over here to the right. All right, so at this point, I need to start thinking, how am I going to get the content into this design, right? And because I know I'm going to be using the Google Sheets plugin, I want to make sure that everything is named properly. So the image, for example, In my layers panel, I'm going to name this piece. And the painting name, I'm going to name this painting. I think that's what I named it. We'll check in a second. I'm going to name the date, date. And this one is going to be description. And I think that's probably all I need. Perfect. Okay. So with all of that done, we're going to grab every single element on this page, including that background, and turn all of this into another repeat grid. Again, you can press the button at the top, Command and Control R, and now I can drag out additional paintings going down my artboard like this. So I think I had 4 of them. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And I'll just pop it right about there. And I can also grab the area in between each one of them and just space them out. Perfect. Okay. So now that we have a repeat grid going, of course, we could go ahead and hop into Finder, grab a bunch of images and drag them directly into the grid. We could do that. We can also dive in and manually override all the painting, all the names, the painting name, the description. We could do that too. However, if I hop over to Safari, I've got over here a Google Sheet that I've been working on with columns that have the exact same name. You know what? I forgot the name of the artist. That would be helpful, wouldn't it? So let's make some changes actually. I'm going to move this down a little bit. Move that down a touch. Move that up a little bit. Move the date up a touch. Add a new layer. And artist. And I'll make this a little bit smaller. It is sort of secondary information. Maybe I'll drop this to about medium. Maybe I'll make it even smaller. Let's go for 32 pixels. And I'll pop this right about there, right? Now, the amazing thing about repeat grids is I did all of this inside of one of the cells, right? I made all these changes. I added the artist. I moved things around. If I scroll down here, you're noticing. Now, of course, I overrid the artist name, but that's okay. But the point is, all the information was moved, and it was just kind of popped there, right? I'm going to make sure to name this artist. Artist. So going back to my Google Sheet, I've got piece, artist, year, which I should probably update to year. There we go. Image, which is this one here. I should probably name this image. Got to make sure that everything, so this one is called, okay, I got it. This is piece. There we go. And then description. So I've got columns filled with content. So, hey Andrew, welcome. So in a world where you are working collaboratively with people all over the world, and somebody might love working with spreadsheets, and they're collecting all this data that you need to use inside of your project, Google Sheets will make your life so much easier. So I've got this looking pretty good, right? What I'm going to do is I'm going to select, I'm going to just copy the Google Sheet just like that. I'm going to hop back over to Adobe XD. And with the repeat grid selected, I'm going to go ahead and type out paintings. I'm going to go into my plugins panel one more time. And I want to find the Google Sheets plugin. Again, if you don't have this plugin installed, go ahead and install it. I know Lowry in the chat was going crazy with plugins. So Google Sheets, I'm going to go ahead and paste the public link. You can also use a local CSV file if there's security concerns or you just don't use Google Drive. I'm going to paste and continue. And XD is automatically going to match up the layer names with the column names inside of the Google Sheet. So you're noticing image, image, right? Piece and piece. Artist, artist, year and year. Description did not match. I probably spelt something wrong along the way, but you can manually brace yourselves. You can manually map them out, right? Description. And then all I have to do is press apply. And here it goes. Bam. So it not only loaded in the image, it loaded in the painting name, the artist, the description, the year, and as I scroll down the repeat grid, everything is there. And I can still override it, right? So if I want to make this one smaller, for example, I can do that. Move this up a little bit. And you're noticing those changes have applied everywhere. I can make this smaller, or maybe I can drop this to regular, make it a little bit smaller, move it up, and all the changes sync really nicely. And what's even cooler is that if myself or somebody else decided to go in here and make changes. Now I can't, I'm not logged into that specific account right now, but if I want to make changes to all the items inside of this repeat grid, I just have to dive in there, make the changes to the Google Sheet, hop back over here, and then press refresh content, and it's automatically going to bring in those changes as long as the names of the layers match with the names of the columns, right? Which is really cool. Now, what if we wanted to, in the last 10 minutes or so, what if we wanted to prototype what this could potentially look like? It's actually very easy, specifically because we're using components. What I'm going to do is I'm going to grab, and you know what? I did mess something up. I did mess something up. No one caught it, right? Lowry's saying, can you repeat the name of the plugin? So it's called the Google Sheets plugin. Now, actually, I didn't mess something up. We should be good. Maybe that's why no one caught it, because I didn't mess it up. We're going to actually convert this entire thing into a component. So I'm going to press the plus button at the top. We've got our default state. And now what I can do is I can go into our new state. Actually, I did mess something up. Yes, I did. What I want to do is not have the pagination inside of the repeat grid. I actually want this outside of the grid. So I'm going to just copy this and paste it outside of the grid. So I only have it present on the top one, right? And now with both of these selected, I'm going to turn this into a component. And now we're going to create a new state. This will be state number 2, which is the Hey Wayne painting. And now what I can do is I can dive in here. I'm not going to touch the pagination right now. I'm just going to grab the repeat grid and move it on up so it snaps nicely into place. And now I can dive in here. Let's go for 0. Whoops, that was 30%. And this one is 100%. So I'm going to press the, whoops. Oh, helps if I select the actual object. There we go, right? And we just made changes. Now, the reason I did that is so we can actually create an experience on this single artboard. So if I go into prototype mode, I'm going to go ahead and select the second pagination dot. And instead of dragging it somewhere else to another artboard or somewhere else on the page, I'm simply going to click on that blue handle. And this will allow me to, I have to go to Auto Animate, and this will, nope, choose an artboard. I don't want to choose an artboard. What are you doing? Hold on. Nope, okay, it's not working. Why is it not working? I have my state, Hey Wayne. I've got my default state, and I've got this selected. There we go, Hey Wayne, okay. That was interesting. Let me actually go ahead, just to make my life a little bit easier, because clearly this doesn't like my repeat grid. Ungroup the grid. Haha, take that, Adobe XD. So now what I can do is I can dive in here, select the second object, press, no, it still isn't working. Oh, because it's a component, no, it should still work. But anyways, we're gonna run with this. I'm gonna go to Hey Wayne, Auto Animate selected. Let's go for 0.4 seconds. And now if I press this, watch, whoop, and it scrolls on down. You were in the wrong state. Was that it? That could be it. I don't know. But there we go, right? And then from there, we can always go back. We can do the whole thing, and everything will look pretty good. All right? Fancy. Perfect. Okay, one more thing I might want to do is I might want to create some sort of more, maybe someone's going on like an AR experience, for example, and they might be touring what this museum could look like. So for that, I'm actually going to duplicate this. Delete all of this. Now in here, let's go ahead and make an image. And let's find this image here. I'm going to drag this in. And he's saying, so components, you effectively reduce the number of artboards. Indeed. And Minash is asking, how do I edit individually the buttons to change each button color? So if you were talking about here, for example, all you have to do is just dive in here. Even though this is a component, you can still select the background layer and just change the color of the button, because you can override instances of your components. Now what's cool about that is if you go to the master component and you edit the styling, even though you overrode the color, because you did not override the shape of the button, it's still going to sync and push those changes, which is really nice. But for now, we're gonna go back to the purple. All right, so we've got this here. Maybe this is the wall of a museum, and we may want to add some paintings so that someone can tap on one of them and maybe it'll expand. Now over in Photoshop, I actually have a bunch of painting frames that I might want to use. So maybe this one over here, this looks like a pretty nice frame. I'm simply going to copy it and paste it, paste it directly into Adobe XD, just like this. I'll make it nice and small. I'll position it right about here. Nice to know you're human. Yeah, things happen. Mistakes happen. Sometimes I run into bugs. Sometimes I run into, I don't know. It's been a long stream and it's very hot in this room, so I can't think properly. So I've got this one picture frame here. Maybe I'll want this one here. Paste it. Right. And maybe I will want one more. This one looks pretty fancy. And maybe for this one, I might just want to rotate it 90 degrees. Just like that. Maybe this is a little bit smaller. Yeah, and as Cornell was mentioning, if you turn them into components inside of the repeat grid, you will be able to overwrite them. So we've got some paintings here, and now inside of these paintings, we may want, or at least the frames, inside of the painting, we may want some actual paintings. I keep saying paintings, and I mean frames. I'll go ahead and do that, and for this one, I'm going to grab a painting, let's say the Mona Lisa, although she wouldn't fit in that one. Let's put in a different one in that one. Let's do this one here, move it to the back, and then maybe over here, we'll do another one. This one, probably the Mona Lisa will fit. I did see the Mona Lisa when I was in Paris, and it was very disappointing. It was very small. I figured it would be bigger, but it was not. And then over here, we'll drag out one more, and we'll do, I don't know, sure, this painting here. Perfect. So we have a few paintings on this document or on this artboard. Things are looking pretty good, but what would happen if someone taps on one of them, right? We could use components, we can use multiple artboards. It's completely up to you. I may also want to add a little bit of a shadow, actually. Just a little bit. Probably not too much of a shadow because the lighting in these places are usually pretty good, so a very subtle shadow. I'm not going to bother adding a shadow on the other ones because we only have a few minutes left, but very similar to what we did on this experience, let's go ahead and grab all this, turn this entire thing into a single component. We're going to create one more new state. This will be Mona Lisa, for example. Or maybe, I don't know, painting one. And then inside of here, we want to dive into this component. We're going to select all the elements and just, I'm going to turn off responsive resize and just make everything nice and large. So basically, you know what? I'm actually going to make it a little bit smaller because I do want the other paintings to be slightly visible. And I'll show you why in a moment. Now we can also add some sort of a nameplate below it so it has a description and a name. We are running out of time, so I'm going to leave it at this. And then we're going to do, let's say, painting number 2. And maybe painting number 2 will be this one over here. And then, now you want to make sure when you're editing the position inside of a component, you're actually grabbing the elements and not the component itself. And now we're going to do painting number 3. Grab the elements and shift them over, right? Just like that. So now we have our default state, which is zoomed out. We have our painting number 1. We have our painting number 2 and our painting number 3. And now we can wire all of this stuff up together. So from our default state, we can go to this painting here, click on the handle. We're going to choose painting 1. Let's see what that looks like. Okay, not bad. What does a snap look like? No, don't like it. Let's go in and out. Let's actually go for like 2 seconds. Oops, I didn't apply it. Ooh, it almost looks like you're kind of walking towards it. That's nice. So then painting number 2 over here, and then painting number 3, right? And now we can go to the other state. So painting number 1, we can actually navigate to painting number 2 over here, or painting number 3. And we can do this for all the other states as well. So if we go to painting number 2, now of course we can't see painting number 3, so that's okay. We'll go back to our painting number 1, and then from state number 3, we can go back to painting number 1 as well, right? So to see this all in action, I'm going to press the play button at the top. We're going to click on this painting. It's going to zoom in. I can go to painting number 2 over here. Now everything's a little bit slow because I have a ton of things running. Obviously my streaming software, Photoshop's in the background, but usually this would be nice and silky smooth. But I can basically navigate around and see all of this. And then from painting number, or from state number 1, I can click on this again and go back to our, well, actually, you know what, maybe not that. Maybe I can just click on the background and I can go back to default state, right? So I can click on that to go back to the default state. I can go to this painting over here, and we are done. So that was it. That's a lot. We covered a homepage, a gallery, and some sort of an AR experience that we're kind of faking through Adobe XD. So hopefully you all enjoyed this masterclass number 17. I will be back next week with another masterclass. I'm also going to be sitting down with Kevin Lee on Monday and Tuesday. He's going to be designing some pretty cool stuff, so stick around for that. In just a few minutes, Nick and Andrew are coming up with office hours. You won't want to miss that. It's always very entertaining. A big thank you to everyone who has joined me live for the last hour. I will see you all later.